Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Whatever part of the world you're currently watching our Base Economics video blog, as well as listening to our Spotify podcast. My name is Al Mina, the concept author of the book Face Economics, the utilization of the social media platform in economic development worldwide. Our aim is to help the world advance capacity, build institutions, as well as provide economic development support using new world tools that is commonly and widely used throughout the world by the regular population of this planet. Because I believe that it is up to us to move, all work together and make this world a better place and lift all boats economically. So with that said, folks, thank you for listening and watching again. I thought I share with you some of the, very interesting, uh, you know, evolutionary process in the U.S. media that caught my attention. Typically, opine on issues that pertain to economic development normally, but things that are happening outside of my radar screen is starting to, basically um, escalate. And I thought I'd tune in and drill down on what's happening in the, you know, media world in the US, especially the national news organizations that I thought would be interested in covering both sides of the story regarding Ukraine and Russia, the conflict in that part of the world. Whereas it's been 2 years and I've heard tons of news and coverage regarding the Ukrainian side of the situation, but never once did I come across any national news outlet in the U.S. market that has covered the Russian side. I think we need to be fair and balanced, and we need to, consider, the overall conditions that precipitated the war. Okay, that's the only way for us to render a logical solution and interpretation of what's been happening. Imagine thousands of people that have suffered and died and perished because of this conflict. Billions of U.S. taxes basically shelled out to go to Ukraine and help them with aid and all sorts of humanitarian support regarding a war that could have been prevented, and that is not an understatement, but in several it came from several sources, right, folks? So with that said, Mr. Tucker Carlson, and a journalist who has basically been bamboozled by some of these national news organizations in the States, like CNN and Fox News. People are just basically poking fun Mr. Carlson for, being let go, or I think, in my opinion, he was ambushed by some of his colleagues and made sure that he does not, continue to do what journalists do, which is report. Okay, so with that said, he has made a decision to go to Russia and actually, cover the Russian sides of the story regarding the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Very commendable effort, brave individual. I mean, I simply cannot say any more that would encapsulate how courageous Mr. Carlson is for doing what he's doing. He's basically balancing things out, whereas his colleagues are so they're just aren't interested in sharing both sides of the story. So he had published a teaser video regarding his visit to Ukraine and his upcoming interview that he's about to publish on his website with Mr. Putin. And I think, based off of what might happen or what would end up talking about, would definitely reveal things that most Americans are not aware of or have been exposed to in the past. Just because, 2 years into a war that no major news outlets in the U.S., a national organization, media organization, have even attempted to connect with the Russian President Putin. We're not here to endorse Mr. Putin by any means. We just simply want to basically be fair and balanced regarding the overall, reasoning behind the conflict. I mean, I never endorsed either side. I just want to make sure that we're able to assess the full story behind the conflict as Americans. So what I'm going to do is I'll play the video, the teaser video that Tucker Carlson had published leading up to his upcoming interview with Mr. Putin, and then we'll kind of, dissect the video and talk a little bit of some of his pointers and talking points that he had pointed out regarding his teaser video, because even the teaser video itself is fairly compelling. I mean, it's less than 5 minutes, but it definitely provokes you to think outside of the box and make your box even more bigger. So with that said, I'm going to I'm going to share my screen and play the video for you guys, and pause it and talk a little bit about some of the things that he had mentioned regarding his upcoming visit with Mr. Vladimir Putin. Okay, let me play that video here now. All right, so let's see. Let me start from the very beginning.
We're in Moscow tonight. We're here to interview the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We'll be doing that soon. There are risks to conducting an interview like this, obviously, so we thought about it carefully over many months. Here's why we're doing it. First, because it's our job. We're in journalism. Our duty is to inform people. 2 years into a war that's reshaping the entire world, most Americans are not informed. They have no real idea what's happening in this region, here in Russia or 600 miles away in Ukraine. But they should know. They're paying for much of it in ways they might not fully yet perceive. The war in Ukraine is a human disaster.
So there you go, folks. The war in Ukraine is a human disaster. Let's pause here for a minute. A human disaster. And yet, we're not told or exposed to both sides of this conflict, though thousands of people had died. Okay, what precipitated this war? Why is there a conflict to begin with? 2 years into this ongoing conflict, and we still have yet to hear from Mr. Putin's side. Why is that? And now Carlson, Tucker Carlson is now sharing a Western interpretation of what's going on in the head of the Russian leader. Okay.
Left hundreds of thousands of people dead, an entire generation of young Ukrainians, and has depopulated the largest country in Europe. But the long-term effects are even more profound. This war has utterly reshaped the global military and trade alliances, and the sanctions that followed have as well. And in total, they have upended the world economy.
And that, too, is fairly accurate. It has disrupted markets throughout the world, both emerging and frontier markets of Central and Eastern Europe. It also affected some of the established markets that are within the WTO, and basically disrupted all sorts of trade and commercial activities because of the ongoing conflict. And yet, we haven't heard the sides of the Russians. Okay, don't you all find that kind of strange? Um, you know, um, 2 years into the war and billions worth of U.S. tax dollars have been shelled out to go to Ukraine, and thousands of lives gone. You know, what? Why are they, you know, no longer with us? These people, both sides, Ukrainians and Russians, did they even deserve to perish? You know, so these are the question marks that we all need to kind of put out there and say, you know what, give us more substance, give us more, meat on this story regarding this war that we're supporting in Ukraine. We're Americans too. We might not be as powerful as those people that make decisions in Washington D.C., but we're Americans too. We pay tax. Me myself, I've actually served my country. Making $200 a month for 28 months. $200, folks. And I serve my country so that other countries can feel as if we are their partner that they ought to trust and rely on. Okay, so why haven't we heard both sides of the stories? It's baffling to me.
The post-World War II economic order, the system that guaranteed prosperity in the West for more than 80 years, is coming apart very fast, and along with it, the dominance of the US dollar. These are not small changes. They are history-altering developments. They will define the lives of our grandchildren. Most of the world understands this perfectly well. They can see it. Ask anyone in Asia or the Middle East what the future looks like. And yet the populations of the English-speaking countries seem mostly unaware. They think that nothing has really changed. And they think that because no one has told them the truth. Their media outlets are corrupt. They lie to their readers and viewers. And they do that mostly by omission.
Okay. So omission, meaning that either information is not being shared or it's being suppressed. Why? 2 years into a conflict, and we still don't know what the Russian side of the story is. Okay. We shouldn't take, sides without fully understanding the overall, condition of both sides. As logical and, educated or not so educated decision makers, we ought to understand both sides of the conflict. Okay. We can't just take sides blindly, folks, because thousands of people have died. Okay. Thousands and thousands have died regarding this conflict that, we still don't know what took place. Why is it precipitated through an ongoing war of 2 years? And I don't know if there's even going to be an end to it.
For example, since the day the war in Ukraine began, American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they've done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky. We hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews. They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into a war in Eastern Europe and pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda. Propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people. At the same time, our politicians and media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like he's a new consumer brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin.
Very true again. To my knowledge, and based off of my research, there isn't any major news stations in the U.S. or broadcasting stations that actually, organize some sort of one-to-one interview with Vladimir Putin, where he can, freely express his sentiments regarding his, decision-making process, what was going on in his head, what, his mandate was, and what it is that he's telling his population regarding this war. Okay, folks. So let me keep on
Most
listening to
Americans
this.
have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. You've never heard his voice. That's wrong. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too. Freedom of speech is our birthright. We were born with the right to say what we believe. That right cannot be taken away no matter who is in the White House. But they're trying anyway. Almost 3 years ago, the Biden administration illegally spied on our text messages and then leaked the contents to their servants in the news media.
Whoa. Okay. When governments would tap into, personal accounts of citizens that they don't have any real reason to tap into or even monitor or invade our privacy, citizens or journalists or anyone that the government or any entity can just tap into at their will, that's just unheard of. That's uncalled for. That's abuse of power. That's a complete no. That's something that only rogue and nefarious and dictatorial societies would do to suppress their citizens' freedom of speech and the right of expression. If something like this were to be happening in the U.S., then that's something we ought to all look into, folks. Americans, our politicians, our elected officials. Back many years ago, during September 11th, there was this Patriot Act that was enacted, but that's because of suspicions of terrorism in the country. People that are actually infiltrating our society in the U.S. and coming to the U.S. and looking to do harm to our population. But when American citizens, private citizens, and journalists, and government officials or political candidates are being monitored regularly, and their privacies in being invaded by entities that claim that they're quote unquote trying to preserve democracy, is doing that in complete opposite of the concept of democracy, folks. It's just unbelievable for things like this to be happening in the year 2024. Just ridiculous. All right, let's try to finish off this teaser video.
In order to stop a Putin interview that we were planning. Last month, we're pretty certain they did exactly the same thing once again. But this time, we came to Moscow anyway. We are not here because we love Vladimir Putin. We are here because we love the United States. We wanted to remain prosperous and free. We paid for this trip ourselves. We took no money from any government or group. Nor are we charging people to see the interview. It is not behind a paywall. Anyone can watch the entire thing, shot live to tape and unedited, on our website, tuckercarlson.com. Elon Musk, to his great credit, has promised not to suppress or block this interview once we post it on his platform, X, and we're grateful for that. Western governments, by contrast, will certainly do their best to censor this video on other less principled platforms.
Well, Western governments are now silencing freedom of speech, freedom of press, and attacking journalists. Okay, I heard that when I was studying world history and reflected on it back when I was in high school and college, where rogue nations and the axis of evil would do those kind of things to their own people and citizens. Now he's saying that he's experienced the same exact thing that we read about in our history books, the same kind of crap that we fought. Is that the kind of society and country and civilization that we want to be a part of? Is that the kind of society that we want to, call home. I mean, this is so freaking strange, folks. I mean, who would have thought in the year 2024 that we would be exposed to all this kind of crap and garbage that we're basically inundated with, that is imposed on us by our own freaking government? Okay, folks, uh, this is unbelievable. I mean, talk about abuse of power here. Okay. Um, I hope for the very best for Tucker Carlson. I'll let him complete his teaser video here, and I'll reflect on some of what he talked about after this teaser video ends. Okay.
Because that's what they do. They are afraid of information they can't control. But you have no reason to be afraid of it. We are not encouraging you to agree with what Putin may say in this interview, but we are urging you to watch it. You should know as much as you can. And then, like a free citizen and not a slave, you can decide for yourself. Thanks.
Share this freaking video. Okay, folks. This interview is possibly going to be that interview that will wake people up, not only in America, but all over the world, all over Europe. This war needs to stop, and it needs to end as soon as possible. We don't need any more people suffering. We don't need any more destruction. We don't need any more mayhem in this planet. Share that interview, share the teaser video, Tucker Carlson's teaser video, share this podcast and this video with your family and friends and relatives, whoever it is that you believe would benefit from understanding the situational condition, okay, that would understand the overall concept of democracy, the overall, competitive advantage of a society that is democratic, okay? And the people that would understand the core competency, okay, of individuals that can preserve democracy, okay?
Well, it's official. Tucker Carlson is, in fact, interviewing Russian President Vladimir Putin.
A lot of things that are happening in this world that we regular citizens are simply not given the opportunity to, get access of. Okay. But one thing that we all ought to do as people of this world, people of this planet, Americans or non-Americans, is to pursue truth, pursue wisdom, pursue the vision of a more prosperous world where human suffering is eradicated. Okay. With that said, folks, thank you so much for watching this video blog and listening to our Spotify podcast. If you would like to see the video blog on our Face Economics TV YouTube channel, feel free to do so and subscribe, like, and tell your friends about us. Feel free to also support us if you feel inclined to do so, as well as, go to our Face Economics podcast on Spotify. These social media platforms that are hosting messages like ours that is somewhat controversial. Some people call, our message controversial, but guess what, folks? Is there a war in Ukraine? Yes. Are there thousands of people that died? Yes. That's not controversial. It's actual fact. Okay. Billions of US taxes have been sent to Ukraine. That's fact. It's not controversial. You can actually, find that information. It's readily available online. Is freedom of speech being suppressed? That's fact. Okay. Gonzalo Lira is no longer with us, and all he did was basically provide a review of his assessment regarding the pre-existing condition in Ukraine. And, he basically just piggybacked off of other, subject matter expert journalists that was covering the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So if they want to call us all, controversial, guess what? George Washington, the first president of America, was seen as controversial by the British crown because he decided to succeed from the crown and basically create a new country because he got tired of being, bullied and, peed on and, basically enslaved by the principalities, monarchies that haven't really, considered regular people. So is George Washington controversial? Well, guess what? He led a new country to evolve out of nothing. Okay, was Lincoln controversial? He abolished slavery. I mean, he could have done more. He could have just said to the rest of America, guess what? Native Americans, the other races in America are also, consistently affected by, the marginalization of races in America. He could have gone farther than just abolishing slavery. He could have said all races of Americans and people that are on our soil are equal to us. He could have easily said that, but he was seen as controversial anyway by just abolishing slavery. So guess what, folks? There aren't a lot of people that are willing to go out there and put out their name and reputation and credibility to in the name of peace, in the name of uh, information that is truthful, in the name of democracy, in the name of free speech, freedom of expression, freedom of movement. There's not a whole lot of people that would be willing to put their name out there in search of truth, unfortunately. Okay, so there was a civil rights movement in the U.S. Most of those people were seen as controversial because it went against the mold. It was, against the prevailing thought at that time. So, I commend anyone and everyone around the planet, not just in America, but anyone and everyone that's willing to, stand up for, freedom, looking to, preserve democracy, and speaking out against oppression and abuse of power. Folks, if we don't do anything, those that have been, oppressing us and those that are abusing their power will continue to do so. Unless people rise up and say to these, very nefarious characters that we're not putting up with it. Your crap is not allowed in our house. Okay, folks, that's something that we all need to, unanimously say that your crap does not belong here. Your abusive, your abuse of your power is not accepted. Okay, because we put you in power first of all, and we're willing to hold you accountable for that power. So all right, folks. With that said, thank you so much again for listening. My name is Almin. I'm the concept author of Face Economics, the utilization of social media platform in economic development. Social media platform, as you all know, weren't available before in human existence ever. Read any history books. There was no social media platform where people can congregate and have the meeting of the minds and talk about, issues that are prevalent or relevant in today's world. We no longer live in the 18th, 17th, United 16th century. We live in the year 2024, folks. Okay. Sink or swim. We have to figure out a way to advance as human beings and preserve, democracy on this planet, eradicate, poverty, and make sure war is only, available in our history books in the past for us to reflect on, so we won't have to repeat the same crap that people had to deal with, back in the days. I mean, war is not the answer to anything. Violence is never the answer to anything, and we ought to use our brains to prevent war from, engulfing or even, oppressing regions of this world. Okay, it's oppressive. War is extremely oppressive. With that said, my name is Al Mina. Thank you for listening and watching our YouTube video blog. Looking forward to talking to you, and look forward to also reflecting on the upcoming interview between Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin, and opine on that as well. Make sure to share that video and wait for that video to come out. At this point in the game, just share the teaser video, share any YouTube channels that spoke about the upcoming interview. Okay, folks, in any language. I'm pretty sure in other media, outlets overseas, some people are also anticipating this interview. I saw it in a foreign language news channel, and people are extremely, interested in this upcoming interview. So, America, don't be left behind. Share this upcoming interview with your family and friends, and opine on it and reflect on it. You don't have to believe everything that they're saying, but just balance things out and consider some of the talking points that they're going to be discussing about. We're not here to tell you how to think. We want you to listen and understand what's going on, and you guys make that decision for yourself. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. Bye.